Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. So we're waiting for people to file back into the room. We'll just acknowledge the people online. Daniel, Jeffrey, Jim, Bharat, Greg, Risha, Joe, John, Andreas, Tyler, Samuel, Gaitis, and Michael. And our custom is to introduce ourselves. My name is Cass.
Alex.
Luis.
Name is Steve.
Jim.
Nico.
Tom.
Matthew.
I'm Brad.
Mark.
Will.
Ricky.
Stephen. Tony.
Bob.
Jim.
Is anybody here for the first time or here after a long absence? What's your names again? Sorry.
Nico.
Nico.
Will.
Will, welcome. And it's my great pleasure to introduce my sister, Reverend Daigan Gaither, who began Buddhist practice in 1995 in the Vipassana Insight tradition, then began studying Zen in 2003. He received lay ordination in 2006, where he was given the name Daigan, or Great Vow, and received priest ordination in July 2011. Daigan speaks internationally on a variety of topics, particularly around gender, sexuality, social justice, and their intersections with the Dharma. He also sits or has sat on a number of boards and committees that serve community needs and further social justice causes. Daigan has a BA in philosophy and religion from San Francisco State University and an MA in Buddhist studies with a chaplaincy certificate and a certificate in Soto Zen Buddhism from the Graduate Theological Union and the Institute of Buddhist Studies. He lives in San Francisco and identifies as a disabled, queer, white, cis male. Learn more at queerdharma.net.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a poem. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, right in this room, when you turn around? I'm really fascinated these days and practice a lot with what it means to practice in perilous times. I think for a lot of us right now, it feels very perilous. And I think that as practitioners, it's really easy for us to gloss over and convince ourselves, oh, I can't be angry. I can't be frightened. I shouldn't pick a side. And I personally think that's bullshit. The Buddha taught us that there are three main modes of training: Shīla, Samādhi, and Prajñā. Shīla is ethical conduct. Samādhi is concentration, stability, and Prajñā is wisdom. And they sort of feed each other in this cycle of, as we begin to practice with ethical and moral conduct, it becomes easier for us to settle into our experience and settle into our bodies and become stable and upright. And as we become more stable and upright, it's easier for us to hear the wisdom as it arises. And then that wisdom leads us into a stronger relationship with moral and ethical conduct, which then leads us into a deeper relationship with concentration and stability, and so on and so on. And so today I want to sort of focus on Shīla, on ethical and moral conduct. I think that it's sometimes disheartening for me to hear my peers say things like, oh, we need to welcome everyone. But they don't get into the nuance of what that actually means. They forget that and fall into this and forget about the paradox of tolerance. The idea that we don't necessarily need to tolerate intolerance. I think they think that equanimity means that we don't pick a side. But if we don't pick a side, we're going to always end up supporting the oppressor. We live in a world right now where violence, both actual deadly violence, but also emotional and spiritual violence is happening on a regular basis around the world. There are 9 genocides that we know of. More than 18 current war violent conflicts. And even here in this country, we have communities that are actively being hunted, dehumanized, scapegoated, including our own, as queer people. And if we can't use our ethical and moral practice to face that, if we can't extend our practice off of our cushion into the rest of the world, into our neighborhoods, into our relationships with our friends and families, it's useless. I sit every day, at least once, often more than once. And the only thing that gives me is I've started to develop the ability to understand and hear my own heart, to hear the request of my practice. So my days of marching and civil disobedience and being arrested are long over. And so I sit at home and I am the phone call for people who are marching and who are practicing civil disobedience, so that I can connect them with lawyers. I donate time and money to organizations and institutions that are creating change in the world, often led by Black women. I continually educate myself on what it means to live in this world, in the body I live in. So that as I step out with intentionality. I exist in the world in the ways in which my heart tells me is right and just. It's not that I'm not afraid. It's not that I'm not angry. It's not that, but I don't let that drag me around. I let that empower me. I let that feed my practice. I think it's so easy for us to skip over the hard work of being uncomfortable in pursuit of feeling good, of feeling better. Oh, isn't it great I don't have to be afraid anymore? But really, I'm still afraid. We have to be careful of letting our practice suppress us. So as we sit down and we begin to study our life and our experience right now, the great thing about our practice is that it brings us in relationship to this body that we live in. And the great things about the human body is that it only exists in this moment. I can only experience it right now. Which means that when I sit down and I'm paying attention to what's happening in my body, when I start to look at where does that fear live? What's the nature of that experience? What's it like for me to be angry right now? What's the nature of that experience? Not my stories, not my ideas, not my aspirations or intentions, but the actual lived experience of it in my body. Slowly but surely, it starts to untangle and starts to tell me things about what it means to exist in the world, in this body, in this place, with this experience. Which then allows me to connect more deeply with the people around me and invite them into their own experience and believe them when they tell me what that is. I have a friend who often says, believe first, understand later. I think existing in a world right now, that's really important. So I have to continually strive to deepen this relationship to ethical conduct. And I do that through meditation, which leads me to wisdom, which leads me to a deeper understanding of what it means to practice. I spend a lot of time with, I'm a chaplain, and I spend a lot of time with people who are dying. And I think one of the beautiful parts of that experience is being able to encourage people in those moments to really notice what it's like to be alive, knowing you're going to die. Families to begin to get comfortable in realizing that grief is not some big scary thing that you have to let control you. It's just part of what it is to be a person. But because I've done my work on the cushion, it's so much easier for me to not be afraid of other people's doing their work. And I can be present with them while they do their work. And I can meet them in those moments and deeply, deeply connect with them. But it's also the same thing I do when I'm sitting in front of a room of other practitioners. And I settle into my experience. It allows me to also hear the experience and wisdom that's here in this room, that we all share. I often say I'm not the smartest person here. If I'm doing my part right, it means that my lips move, but you give the talk. But that only comes if I can settle into my experience and not freak out about my experience. Not be dragged around by my experience, the nature of my existence. My friend Rod Owens wrote a book called Love and Rage. And what I love about this book is that there's a lot of practices, a lot of exercises at the end of the chapters to really point us into starting to develop the capacity to live with love, to live with rage, and to let those transform us. Audre Lorde says, transforming silence into action. Read the poem once again, but then I also want to leave enough time for people to talk and bring their own wisdom to the room. By the way, this is a poem by William Stafford, one of my favorite Buddhist, non-Buddhist poets. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor. What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, right in this room, when you turn around? I appreciate your time. And now I want to appreciate your words. I do ask that you tell me your name before you... And you can make a statement or ask a question or talk about something I missed or left out. Yes?
My name is Alex.
Say it again?
My name is Alex.
Alex. Okay.
And two lines of thoughts came to my mind when I was listening to you. I was born in Ukraine and grew up there, and half of my family is from Ukraine. So it resonated when you talked about wars and conflicts. But I also wanted to bring a different cultural and historical perspective to this room. It's easy to feel that the world is going down the hill and everything is collapsing. and some kind of Armageddon is coming. And it helped me to look at the generation of my grandparents.
Mm.
They survived the revolution, civil war. They lost all 3 children due to famine in Ukraine in 1930s. Then had another 4 children. Then the second war started. They were bombed heavily. And my mother and her sisters kind of grew up first few years under bombs and Nazi occupation. And now 2 of my aunts last year just died in Kiev, also being bombed. So they were born in a war and they died in a war.
Mm-hmm.
So from one perspective, there is nothing new in the world. The war has always been part of the world, at least through the known written history. Nothing has changed from Buddhist time. And my grandma, she has amazing ability to survive. And I think it was her main lesson to me, which she never said in words, but that's what I felt. She lost all of her children. She witnessed them dying from hunger. And yet she delivered 4 other children. And she had a will to live. So to me, if they could do it, we can do it too. That gives me strength.
Thank you very much. I think that gives me hope too. I see the way in which resilience and strength exist in people all over. And there's always someone doing the right thing somewhere. I appreciate you bringing that in, that piece. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Mark. I appreciated your talk. I've been involved in civil justice things since the late 60s, against the war in Vietnam, and I was drafted. Once I got out of college, and I checked the box and told them I was gay. There were no gay people literally in the world. I mean, nobody was gay at the level of press or radio or for films. I mean, it ended your career. So, we were at it all the time, and I then became involved in gay liberation. And the thing is, it's changed. It worked. Not to be Pollyannish, but I mean, a lot of people, things changed. We can get married now. We can do all kinds of things that would have been impossible. We got out of Vietnam. Nixon resigned. Johnson didn't run again. Not that didn't take tremendous work, but it worked in the end. So I have some kind of hope about that. And I've been doing marching with Indivisible, SF in the No Kings, and we went down one morning, it still works. We went down one morning, we were demonstrating in front of the ICE judicial courts, and they closed them. I mean, they closed them for the day. That's just one day and one afternoon, but it had an impact. So when the Buddha talks about right action and right speech, that seems like right action and right speech to me, because it seems like it's on the side of justice to me, which is very important. And I think that's part of my obligation as a human being, is to stand up for that when people are being trod upon. So thank you for talking about that.
I've been following a story of a woman in LA who spends all day following ice around and screaming out to the neighbors. She's been arrested a few times. She has a GoFundMe to help pay for her bail. White woman, stay-at-home mom, drives around her little Suburban. I think, again, this resilience, and it helps me in those moments of despair. I remember, I was arrested in the 70s too, and I remember an ACT UP and, closing down all the places that we closed down, and I was arrested a lot. But we made change, right? Like, it's much different for us today, And I think that's beautiful. And I think it does speak to what Alex was talking about, this resilience that we have as human beings. The ability to find our place and to then stand in it. Even if that just means I'm going to tell you what's happening. There's a woman in Ojai who every day sets up a little table, and she's laminated the names of all of the children murdered in Gaza. And then she has a couple of dolls. And she just stands there with a sign. Little old lady in Ojai, having conversations with people, but if nothing else, remembering these children who have been murdered. Astounding. To me, that's just beautiful. So yeah, I think it does give me hope, and it inspires me to keep doing what I do, right? To keep sitting, to keep finding and keep listening to the world, right? Avalokiteshvara, hearing the cries of the world. To sit in the lived experience of that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Nico. I really liked what you said at the very beginning, actually, about not tolerating intolerance. And it sort of got me thinking about something that I don't know if I've ever sort of meditated on before. That, they're in Buddhism, one of the things I really connect to is this idea of our interconnectedness, right? And it really teaches you to have compassion for others, in this world in which we're all so inextricably tied to one another. And I wonder how you sort of sit with that, sort of thinking about not tolerating intolerance, this idea of having compassion for others, how do we square having compassion with others in tolerance, you know what I mean? And not seeing those things in conflict in some way. It reminded me actually of this Southernism that I've grown to really like. God loves you just the way you are, but he loves you too much to let you stay that way.
Suzuki Roshi used to say, you're absolutely perfect and you could use some improvement. I think that for me, sometimes I have to love people from 300 feet away. I can have compassion for you, understanding that you're completely deluded. Doesn't mean I have to play in your sandbox. Doesn't mean I have to let you in my world. I can have compassion for you over there. And I think that it's a trap for us sometimes as Buddhists to think that compassion means that we have to allow and accept everything. I demand better from the people in my life. Not better than me, but better than you yesterday. And sometimes that means I have to walk away. And sometimes that's really hard. I walked away from my teacher. I walked away from my home temple because of harm. I don't disparage them. I have no ill will towards them. But I don't want to play in that sandbox either. We have to take a stand sometimes. And we have to be willing to pay the price of that stand. I'm currently in conversation with some people about some harm that's being done at another big Buddhist institution. And it's this deep discussion and dialogue about how can we as teachers continue to teach in this institution, considering the things that are happening. Some people have made choices that I don't agree with, but I'm not living their life. But I love that we're in conversation, that we're listening to each other, that there's a dialogue happening, which in my world feels like we're calling each other to be better. That's how I reconcile those. How about anybody online? Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom. Thank you, Daigan. You know, I often find myself thinking like, oh, what's the use? You know, because the problems can seem so huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to be solution-oriented. Like, okay, what's this going to lead to? You know, what's the aim? What's the goal? How's that going to come about? You know, practical stuff. But as I listen to your talk and some of the comments, you know, I realize, like that woman sitting with the names of children dying in Gaza, or the woman following ice around him, shouting at him, or, you know, protesters in the 60s. You know, Johnson didn't run again. Probably not as a direct result of some sign someone was carrying or a particular march or whatever. It all came together and he was like, I can no longer be effective.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Nixon resigned for a different reason. This whole, you know,
Right.
all that Watergate stuff. But there too, it was like, they're piling on me,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, you don't know when the dam is going to break.
Mm-hmm.
But drop by drop by drop. And, you know, that helps me get out of that thinking of, oh, God, you know, what good is it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a helpful perspective I can take away from this.
I think it's important to note that I think that two tenets of white supremacy and patriarchy is this idea of there has to be a solution, and I have to be heading in that direction. And it's a trap, again, because it stops us. I have a bit of neurospicy mind that oftentimes when there's too much going on, I become unable to do anything. My brain just sort of freezes. But knowing that this is the habit of mine that I have, I can start to see it, and I can go, oh wait, this is my pattern. This is what my brain does. Let's just make a small thing. Let's do one little thing. I'll go take a shower. I'll go make my bed. I don't have to do anything else. I just go do this one thing. Because it breaks me out of that cycle of being frozen. Same thing with when I become, like I talk to, my friends will call me and I'll have to ask them, are we solving the problem or do you want me to just listen? Because my default is to always go right to some, oh, this is exactly what you need to do. Students come to me all the time and they want me to do that, and I fight my own tendency towards that because that's not my job. My job is to just be there and mirror for people who are coming to talk to me.
And it's good to remember it's called ethical conduct.
Right.
Action, not ethical outcomes.
Right.
Not ethical results, because we don't get to know what those are going to be down the road.
Exactly. Really good point too. That right there. Because sometimes we're going to screw it up, right? Like we think it's the right thing to do, and then somebody comes up and goes, "Oh man, you caused this harm." And then we get to take accountability, apologize, learn from it, try something different next time. But at least I tried. At least I did something. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Huh? Cass.
Yes, my name is Cass. So it feels like from your perspective, we're called to be engaged. So I guess it's the question that I have is, how do you balance like self-care and like rising to the times, that what's demanded of citizens in this time?
That's where meditation and becoming quiet and stable really matters, right? Because that helps us develop the wisdom to know, girl, you need to take a break. You've been on the phone for 12 hours now. Time to take a break. But also I have friends around me who love me enough to go, sweetie, when was the last time you had food? I think I've created the kind of life that encourages me to really stay within my limits. Right? I don't have to leave my life to practice self-care. I've created the life that has self-care built into it. But that comes through this relationship, this cycle of Shīla, Samādhi, Prajñā, Shīla, Samādhi, Prajñā. And sometimes it's like I get up in the morning and I sit and I realize like I need to go back to bed. It's just been one of those days, right? And so I just crawl right back into bed. Sometimes that means I have to cancel appointments or whatever, but build your life in such a way you don't have to escape it. And then listen when your friends say, sweetie, how about a little protein? You've been eating a lot of carbs today.
You said meditation allows you to listen to your heart.
Yeah. And my heart will always say exactly what it needs, if I'm willing to hear it.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Steve. Ramdev, Dave Borglund talks about compassion, feelings with others, but the calculus includes ourselves, and that sitting mindfully, you will know when it's time to help and when it's time to help yourself. So I like that. Just we are included in the equation of compassion.
Absolutely. Hi.
Hi, I'm Ricky.
Ricky?
Yeah. This is a comment. I'm just thinking about the question around compassion and your talk about not tolerating intolerance, but also loving people from 300 feet away. And so I'm going to be digesting that for days and have been thinking about it for a while. But one of the things that's coming up for me is I'm thinking about compassion as a desire and an act to alleviate suffering. And so sometimes when I see people who are causing others to suffer because of their own greed, hatred, delusion, my first compassionate action sometimes is to try to stop them from causing more harm, because it both is harming others and it's also harming them whether or not they realize it. So that might look like advocacy or protest or trying to protect or prevent harm as an act of compassion, both for the people who would be victimized, potentially myself, but also for the one who's perpetuating that harm, because it will do none of us good.
Right.
And then there's been times in my life, years ago, where I worked with folks who had committed violent crimes, and I could listen to them based on their professional role with a profound degree of compassion and presence and equanimity, and help them to alleviate their own degree of hatred, shame, and hopefully, or sometimes see that transformation, sometimes not. But then there's people in my own family who perpetuated abuse. So when I think of Trump, for example, I don't have this guttural rage. I go like, oh, that's my uncle. Like I've been with an abusive, like narcissist who harms and like have to have distance. Like, so it doesn't, it maybe induces a fear in terms of how unconscious they are and powerful. But it, and so I just, what I'm saying is basically I'm thinking through your conversation. It's just a response to it. I think it's really beautiful to meditate on loving from 300 feet away, which is knowing when I can do enough compassion, which is protect myself or others to prevent them from doing more harm, versus can I actually be of help to this person in working through their own suffering if they're willing to. And sometimes the answer is no, or not yet. But I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. And I also think it's really important in those situations when we're talking about self and others that we also remember that the only place, I have a very limited field of actual ability to make change. Yeah. Right? It ends at my skin. I can suggest, I can listen, I can protest, I can, but and I have to also be aware that I can't make people change. I tried that a lot, right? I mean, I think anybody who grew up in a family knows. And so, yeah, I think we try, and sometimes that just isn't going to happen, and so then we have to make choices, right? Suzuki Roshi once said that there are not enlightened people only, or there's no enlightened people, only enlightened moments. But then also, Joko Beck says, enlightenment is merely an appropriate response. And so my practice really centers around this idea of how do I get close to this appropriate response? And how do I know? Sometimes it's simple, like, oh, there's a stop sign, I'm going to stop. But other times it's way more complex than that. And that's what really sucks about it, right? Is that it's not an easy answer. It's not one size fits all. We just keep showing up. And keep trying to connect here. Not my story, not my ideas, but what's it like? What's the nature of this existence? Okay, that's the nature of this existence right now in this moment. How do I respond to that? You think, are we at time?
More or less, yes.
Anyone else? Do you want to go? Do you have something else to say?
Nobody else has spoken yet.
If you have something to say, please say it.
I said, for me, my main Buddhist practice is at my work. I work as a physician. And I'm forced to deal with other people, whether I like them or not. I cannot keep them 300 feet away. Mm-hmm. I have to face them very close and personal. And for me, medicine started as more scientific adventure. Now it's becoming more spiritual way of my own development. And my internal state, it seems to be more important than external action. Or at least I need to pay attention first to my internal state. I have my own biases, and I noticed over the years that they interfere with me providing effective medical care. And even from the very functional perspective of being a better productive physician, I have to address my internal state. To make it a concrete example, the other week I saw on my schedule an African American woman who emailed me that she wanted to extend her disability due to mental stress at her work as a behavioral health specialist. She cannot possibly go and deal with those patients, which was kind of, to me, inappropriate request. And I know that I have bias against women, and I know I have bias against African American. And here she comes with this unreasonable request, and I know now I have to see her, and that's what she wants from me. And my first reaction is like, oh, I hate this job, I don't want to see her. It's just kind of rage, and then I said, okay. But that's sort of my job, not even external job, but my internal job is to kind of be open and just try to hear her first and see what's the reality of the situation and not to be biased. So I have a ritual, kind of how clean this organage and go into the room, and I started asking just very neutral, open-ended questions like how her life was going. And she started talking, and very kind of authentically and sincere, and it turns out that she had quite a bad case of bipolar, and her life was crumbling on all sorts, personally, professionally, physically. She just spent tons of money for things she didn't need, and kind of because she had bipolar episode. And she realized that she had a problem and she needs help. So I directed her to psychiatry, talked about bipolar, and I gave her extension of disability because it felt real. She needed it, she was not functional, she was not able to work in behavioral health, helping other people. And I was proud of myself that me being open allowed her to open up and be real. And then we were dealing with real situation, not our biases, and that was appropriate response to that real situation. And at the end, I kind of connected to her. She connected to me, and it felt good overall. But to me, it comes from first being aware of what's inside and trying to choose that place of compassion. Because we could do even the right activist things from the hatred. I hate Trump, I hate Republicans, I want to destroy things. But it comes from the wrong psychological place. And other people will feel it. And how are they going to react to perception of anger and hate? Only with fear and hate. But if they feel compassion, there is a chance. There's no guarantee, but there is a chance of a different response. And it feels much better inside. If not for them, I'm doing it for myself. It just feels better.
Thank you very much. What a great way to end. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Do we have a host today?
We do. I'm the host. Please stay. We invite you to stay and enjoy the company of Sangha. There's hot water for tea. When you're done with your cups, just put them in the sink and I'll take care of them. There's some snacks out. I think the Omega, little packets of Omega-3 trail mix from Trader Joe's and the mandarins, I think they qualify as vegan, though I'm not sure about what kind of processes went into the Omega-3 trail mix. But, what else? Oh yeah, I'll be passing around the Dana Bowl. Dana is the Pali word for generosity, and it's through your generous donations that we're able to keep this running, the rental of the place, an honorarium for our speakers, scholarships for our retreats, our monthly newsletter, our quarterly newsletter, and now with the monthly Larkin Street dinners starting up again. And also, we just sent out an email because Donna is, you can express generosity not just through monetary and material ways, but also through the time and your time and talents. We're an all-volunteer organization, and one of the things I'll be bringing up to everybody's attention every week is that after years of service, two of our Sangha members, Michael Murphy and Jack Busby, are stepping down from the work that they do to make the quarterly newsletter possible. So we're looking for Michael's job as coordinator of the editing of the newsletter, and then Jack's job was the actual getting the mailing together, the envelopes, the labels, and all of that. It's a pretty big job, but also something as far as like getting the mailing together is something that maybe two people could take on. So there are all sorts of wonderful opportunities for you to help keep our Sangha running smoothly. Also, another announcement, I just want to remind people that we have our fall retreat coming up, the 26th, 27th, 28th. Right. And it's at Land and Medicine Buddha. There's still spaces available. J.D. Doyle will be our teacher, and it's a wonderful setting. There's a swimming pool. Maybe it won't be raining this time. But also, we're doing something different this year. November 23rd, I believe. We've had day-long retreats in the past. They were usually on a Saturday, but we're doing it differently this time. And we won't have our regular Sangha meeting on Sunday the 23rd. But David Moreno will be doing somatic work with us. His day-long workshop called Dynamic Stillness. And It's basically free, except you can give dana for the teacher, and I believe there's lunch is provided also. And I think that's it, except for those looking forward to the future. For our spring retreat, once again, Sean Oakes, we invited Sean Oakes, who's a remarkable teacher. He'll be returning for the third time to lead us in our 5-day spring retreat. And if you can manage it, the time and the money, it's really probably some of the best, at least last year, one of the best retreats I've been on. It's really a deep dive into the kind of devotional, the beauty and depth of devotional practice. I think that's about it.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, so let's gather for the dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.